today. What I'm going to cover right now is location-based services. And the reason I'm bringing this up, a lot of people aren't taking advantage of this particular solution, which can do more than just GPS tracking, which is kind of the bulk of it, but there's a lot of variability to it. But the return on investment can be huge. So just out of curiosity, anybody using a tracking solution now for either their people or their assets or their inventory? Based on the customers that we have here now, do you have vehicles, people, assets, or inventory that need to be tracked? Or you'd like to know where they are? So this may be the ticket for you. So what I'm going to talk about for the most part today are off-the-shelf solutions that are available with most carriers and available on most phones, and the cost is about $1 a day. So let's first talk about GPS. And GPS is only one component of what we're going to talk about in terms of tracking. Most handsets, not all, but most handsets today do have a fully autonomous GPS chipset in them, meaning that that chipset actually talks to the 24 satellites that are orbiting the Earth. They also have connectivity to their mobile network, which improves their time to first fix. So a regular handheld GPS, like a Garmin or a Magellan, can take several minutes to acquire a fix because there's a correction involved with mobile networks, and in conjunction with the GPS receiver in the mobile device, it can be 20 seconds or less in that a handset can find the location. And that location would include a lat along its elevation, and it would also include a time fix as well as the ability to do things like figuring out speed, the direction they're going, trip distances, ETAs, and that sort of stuff. In addition, what's really pretty neat about most of these solutions is that if they do step outside the terrestrial footprint of their mobile network, they will continue to track and collect that information, and then when they step back into that network, that information will be uploaded, so you wouldn't necessarily miss a history or a breadcrumb trail. So that's this is the technical part of what we're going to talk about. That's it. We're done with it. Any questions about global positioning systems, chipsets and handsets, or how they work? Just be aware, if you start talking to any of the carriers or solution providers that offer this, that some handsets may perform better than others, and you need to do a little research in that regard. So, a couple things you can do with GPS solutions. You can locate, you can navigate, and you can also track. In addition, you can collect a lot of information, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So these are some of the potential features that you will have the ability to do should you do one of these, again, off-the-shelf, $1 a day solutions. Real-time location. See where your people are or your assets. That could be a vehicle, that could be a piece of inventory, that could be a person just carrying a cell phone. Fleet view. If you have multiple people or vehicles or assets, you may be able to look at them all at the same time. You would have that ability. By the way, the ability to look at this information, in most cases, is simply going to be web-based. You log into a website that's secure, and you see where your assets are. History reports. Be able to see where your people or assets have been. And there's a lot of value in that beyond just having a document where they are. There's some intangibles. Let me give you an example. I actually donate a lot of stuff to a particular charity where they pick up my stuff, typically clothing or furniture, whatever the case may be, and they absolutely drive me nuts because we always seem to miss each other. They say they're going to be there, and they're not. And in many cases, they don't get the stuff, and I take it someplace else and donate it to Goodwill. I call them up. Oh, I'm sorry, they were supposed to be there on such and such. if they were actually tracking and had a history report, they would have the intangible value of being able to tell me, well, I can tell you that we track our drivers and so was there Tuesday at 3 and he waited there for 15 minutes. So that's an intangible, and it could also help in terms of productivity. Mileage reports, great way to keep track of what you do with your vehicles. Stops reporting. This is a specific report that tells you where your person or your vehicle stopped and for how long. Gives you the time and date stamp, and you can see, again, how long that person stopped. And you can set it for different intervals. So anytime this vehicle stops for 5 minutes, it'll show up on a report. Speeding reports. I know of some businesses that have actually saved on their auto insurance. Not so much from a tracking perspective in that they didn't have a problem, but some entities that actually did have a poor history of accidents, etc. When the insurance company knew that they were going to start tracking their drivers, they were actually able to save on their insurance. So you can actually get speeding reports. Timesheets. This can be huge. Being able to track when people clock in and clock out and not having to necessarily go into a location to clock in and clock out. Let me give you I'll give you a hypothetical in the end in terms of return on investment, but just keep in mind timesheets. Work orders. Instead of having to have a verbal communication, having to somebody pull over, write down, I need to go to this location, or start their day off by having to go into an office and get that first job that they need to do. Now they can get that work order on their mobile phone, check that they received it, and they're starting that job. It's also the ability to clear out a work order, improve your cash flow. Many businesses like this in that they don't have to wait for billing on the backside in terms of paper. Now it can be wireless. I completed this job. Somebody can check off on it. Now they can bill the customer. Fleet maintenance. Being able to keep track of when your vehicles have been maintained and what was done to them. Fuel, oil, that sort of information can be captured on a mobile phone. Every time they stop at the gas pump, how many gallons did they put in? And based on their history report, how many miles they've driven. The fleet maintenance reports can be generated. Ping. So if you are in a business where time is money and you really need to know where your people are at any given moment, pinging them is simply shooting out to the network, hey, where are my people right now? And you can get that information right back. Typically, it's every 15 minutes, half an hour, depending on what kind of solution that you are, that information is updated. But pinging is the ability to reach out and see where they are at that exact moment. Dispatch. So, I called up and complained to the charity that I was giving my stuff to, hey, I can't leave this stuff out in the weather. You said you're going to pick it up, but you didn't. Being able to dispatch somebody, looking at it and seeing a fleet view, hey, that person's the closest, I can send him to take care of that. So dispatch capability, and it doesn't necessarily have to be voice. It can come in the form of a data communication, which includes an address, and perhaps even navigate that person directly to where they're going, which was a great segue. I didn't even remember driving directions was next, but driving directions. And some solutions actually offer visual and audible turn-by-turn directions to their locations. Geofencing and alerts. Mark actually hinted to this earlier. The ability to set up a geofence to know where your people are or your assets in terms of geography. So if you want to set up a geofence in a 10-mile radius, so if your vehicle steps outside of that particular footprint, you can do it where you get an email or a text message, hey, that person went outside of this particular geofence. Maybe the geofence is the actual parking lot of your facility. This way you know when they've pulled in and they've pulled out of that particular geofence. Maybe that geofence is Joe's Bar and Grill, and your employee's supposed to be working, and you know their haunt is Joe's Bar and Grill. You can actually set up a geofence in that regard, so you actually get a text message or email to let you know that they've actually broke that geofence, and you get an alert. Big brother to the nth degree there. Inventory or asset tracking. The ability to keep track of your inventory through barcode scanning, because most of these solutions actually integrate a barcode scanning solution that works via Bluetooth between the mobile device and using a barcode scanner. I'm going to give you examples for some profit businesses, but I actually sold a plumbing contractor a solution where he had 20 commercial jobs going at one time, and every month he was spending close to 10 grand in compressors and ladders and other tools because he didn't know where they were and he couldn't mobilize them to do jobs as he moved around. So he actually ended up putting barcodes on all those things, and when they were checked in and out of a location, he was able to keep track of them. The supervisor would have their phone and a barcode scanner. He'd click on the barcode on the ladder. It would give a time, date, location stamp, and he was either checking it in or checking it out from that job site. So it saved this particular customer, thousands of dollars a month and not having to buy new assets because he was able to keep track of them. That inventory may be stuff that you move through your entity. Stuff comes in, stuff goes out. Being able to do that via mobile phone, you would have that capability with, again, this off-the-shelf solution. Handset supervisor capabilities. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in front of a computer screen to see all these things that I've mentioned here previously. You can be on a smartphone. You can even be on a normal feature handset and look at a map and see where an individual is. So you can be mobile and see what's going on with your mobile workers, as an example. And then finally, this may be more applicable to what you're doing, remote data fields and forms. So you don't even necessarily have to do GPS tracking to use one of these particular solutions, in that most of them now offer a customizable field and form that will help you collect data. Another example, Atlanta Gas and Light. Here in town, they actually are using a GPS application but aren't using the GPS feature. They actually just are using the remote fields on a device that they specifically have to carry for the environment that they're in, but they collect information in the field around their plants, and that information goes straight back into a back-end server through the off-the-shelf location-based service. Most of these guys offer solutions where information can go into an open database. So they went paperless before. They were out writing stuff down, bringing it in an office, have to be transposed to a computer. I mean, they have huge cost savings because now one person can collect that information and go straight to a back-end server instead of him having to go in and do it or hand it off to somebody else and having to physically do it. So great solutions, and these are all, again, pretty much off the shelf. $1 a day is what you would end up paying for all these features. So some of the things you have to ask yourself is, how do you know where your people are? How do you provide can you provide them a remote time clock? Do you know that they're being efficient? How do you know exactly what they're doing? Do they ever get lost? Could jobs be completed more efficiently? How do you collect data in the field? And how do you know it's closest to your next opportunity? So the return on investment from these solutions can be huge. Let me give you some hypotheticals. I'm going to use, again, a profit, electrical contractor as an example. If he's doing his business via paper and his people are taking their vehicles home, and his people are having to drive into the shop every day to get their clock in and get their work order before they go to their first job, that's a considerable time difference. Maybe that person, that electrical contractor, is making $100 a job. And maybe if he went to a location-based service where his mobile worker now is clocking in on his phone, he's getting his work order on his phone, and he's going to his first job, that employee now can do an additional job a day. So if he's got 10 employees and a job's worth $100 and he can get 10 more jobs a day, that's $1,000 more a day. That's $5,000 more a week. That's $20,000 a month in a 4-week month for $1 a day. The return on investment is through the roof. So there might be some applications